All right, so we really only have one thing to go over tonight, so we'll get started and get done pretty quickly. But let's begin with the reading of the open meeting language. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Baker issued an emergency order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Public bodies otherwise governed by the OML are temporarily relieved from the requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternate means. This meeting will be broadcast live on Channel 8 and on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by following the call-in information on the bottom of the live broadcast screen. For the Zoom meeting information relating to remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at 978-772-8220, extension 100. I guess we'll just do a quick roll call for, who's that, Cindy?
Sorry.
That's okay.
I usually watch that so closely.
Sure. If we could just, I guess, take a roll call of the board members so we know who's present. I guess start with you, Jerry. Announce yourself, Jerry.
Hello, Jerry Metz is on.
Jason Leone.
And I'm Jason Mayo, the chair. So again, we only have the one agenda item here. We're talking about the beach reopening. And more specifically, we're talking about this document here. A member of town council, Greg Corbo, is on. Thank you for joining us, Greg. And nice to meet you. I don't think we've ever met. And obviously we have our beachfront director, Heidi Januszkiewicz, on with our park director, Jeff Thomas. So the question here that we're trying to discuss and we need to come to a decision on is, now that we have our permit to open Sandy Pond Beach for swimming, what kind of restrictions do we offer? In the past, we've always been open to out-of-town swimmers, and then more recently, I think 2016, we cut it down to out-of-town residents had to pay to use the facilities. Now we're proposing to actually, in 2021, restrict the beach to Ayer residents only. And so town council drew up this document that I hope everybody had a chance to review. And I believe we need to vote to accept that. But before we do that, I think we should have some conversation about it. Does anybody have any questions or comments to start?
Mr. Chair, if I could, just to give a little clarity of where this document came from, and there was some reference to it that Greg had alluded to. The policy for the beach, as you mentioned, was created in 2016, and at that point there was a change in policy where we were charging non-residents a nominal fee for use of the beach. So what we're looking to do this year for safety purposes is to limit the amount of people that we're going to be having at the beach so we can manage it in a way that the Board of Health and our staff are going to be comfortable working with it. So Greg reviewed our beach policy and came up with this a notice to go over it. And I would turn it over to Greg if he had anything he would like to add of how he came up with this document.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Through you, Mr. Chair. So, I did start with the 2016 policy, and the idea that, as the stewards of the beach area, you have the authority to enact reasonable rules and regulations, and those regulations can distinguish between residents and non-residents, as long as there is a rational basis for doing so. And so when you looked at this back in 2016, based on complaints of, things like overcrowding and rowdy behavior and things like that, you chose to scale things back a little bit and have limited parking for non-residents and to require that they pay a fee. And then I don't know what your experience with that had been, but I assume that it had been working well, because that policy was in place for 3 years until 2020, when the beach had to be closed altogether due to the severe pandemic at that time. So now, as we enter the 2021 season, you're faced with the question of, do you open back up in accordance with the 2016 policy, which would allow non-residents on a limited basis, or do you need to dial it back even further based on the fact that the pandemic is still ongoing? And so when we think about, what is the rational basis for limiting the beach to residents only, we start with the premise in the 2016 policy that the beach has limited space and it has limited available parking. And so there's a need to control the number of people that are there. And that need is heightened based on the existence of the pandemic, which, although things are better now, we still are in a state of emergency. COVID-19 still remains a problem. Not everyone is vaccinated yet. And in fact, probably the primary users of the beach, children under 16, aren't even eligible to be vaccinated at this point. And we don't know when they're going to be. So it's my opinion that you do have a rational basis for concluding that for this season, based on current conditions, the beach should only be open to residents of the town of Ayer. And then after this season is over, before we start next year, you could always reevaluate that and see, where things stand, and, possibly reopen the beach to non-residents at that time.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it, and appreciate the effort you put into putting this together and being here with us tonight. So if we adopt this is only for the 2021 season. We won't have to necessarily revisit it. It'll just expire if we want to go back to the old policy, right? Or do we have to come back and reenact the 2016 policy next year if we're going to go back?
So the way that this is written, it will just go away after the 2021 season. But I think for the sake of clarity, it would probably be beneficial if at a meeting like this, just before the 2022 season, you were to make an announcement that says that, the 2021 policy is no longer in effect, and we will be following the 2016 policy for the 2022 season.
Okay. That sounds good. I think that I know I have a couple questions, and they're not necessarily questions that from me. I'm going to try to sort of anticipate questions from the public that might come up, and Heidi, you might have some ideas too from your experience. But one, and I sent this to Jeff in an email, but one is, what happens if a resident of Ayer brings a guest from another town? What do we do? Do we let the resident in? Do we turn the non-resident away? How do we want to handle that? How can we handle that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been easy over the past few years because they just pay their fee and then they come in. But, I'll just use the example of like where I go to the gym, there's no visitors at all this entire past year. And so they just put it out to the membership, no visitors. And that's just the way it is. You show up with a visitor, you gotta go home. Your visitor has to go home. So I think if it were, out on social media and advertised through social media, I think the word would get out pretty quickly if that's the way that we wanted to do it, or whether you wanted to have it be a policy. to not have out of town guests. There's always going to be my babysitter's out of town, or, my parents are visiting and they're watching the kids. And there's exceptions like that I think are a little bit different, but.
Yeah, I would ask Greg's opinion on this, if that causes any kind of hypocrisy in this policy that's being put out there to allow residents to bring guests. And I would venture that it would not be, or it would be, because our current policy that we have from 2016 up until this year was that you could bring a guest, but they had to pay the fee. So it pretty much follows in that same logical sense that if you're bringing a guest, they still would have to pay a fee. And since we're not accepting fees, we're not even going to set ourselves up to do so. One of the reasons for this also includes the idea of trying to limit interaction between staff and guests. And so we're not even going to be equipped to accept a fee from anybody. So I would think so, but I'd like to hear Greg's opinion on that.
So, it does go along with the idea that the purpose of this regulation is to ensure that there is adequate space at the beach for Ayer residents, but while at the same time having adequate space to have people in separate groups be socially distanced, to have less interaction with town staff, to have less enforcement issues with town staff. So it's my opinion that, you can reasonably say, no non-residents at all. For this summer, the beach is only open to Ayer residents. That being said, there are sometimes policies, resident-only policies that say that a resident can bring a certain number of guests. And so, what you have to decide from a matter of policy is, does allowing, each Ayer resident to bring a certain number of non-resident guests, does that further the problem that you're trying to prevent? Or is that something that can be done within the framework that you're trying to work in?
That's a good point. And Heidi alluded to the situation that we had a couple years ago. I don't remember exactly, but there was a family in town that lives close to the beach whose young kids are babysat by a grandparent, right? The kid's grandparents who live out of town. So the grandparents come, take care of the kids during the day while the parents are at work, and they bring the kids to the beach. And in the past, we kind of gave them a waiver from having to pay. I don't remember the exact mechanism. Maybe we gave them a pass or something. I don't remember exactly how we did it. But that, like, those types of situations, now we got to start making exceptions. How are we going to do that if we want to allow that? And maybe allowing 2 guests, out of town guests per resident. I don't know. Maybe that's the way to be consistent with that without having to start making exceptions here and there.
So how does that? So with proof of residency, if I go down with a group, is each person in my group proving residence, or am I, like, as the bringer of the group, do I prove residence? Like, how do we guarantee, if we're gonna be strict on this, like, how do we guarantee that every single person in a group is a resident?
They do show their ID unless they're a kid.
And then with kids, where we just kind of take their word.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems to make sense. I don't see how you go do it otherwise, but then it's like, I mean, then you kind of run into the, like, well, this family got to bring 3 kid friends, and it's like, and so it's like, I think we can be as strict as we can, but I think we also have to realize that, I mean, barring some kind of like unbelievable proof of residence, I think we're going to still end up with some situations where we can't prove everyone's a resident.
Well, absolutely. I mean, no regulation is completely, ironclad, and, there possibly could be ways for people to find a way around it. And, you hope that people are going to act in good faith. Certainly, there is no reasonable way to confirm that a minor is a resident, without going through some process beforehand. But, I believe that in the policy, that a minor is not allowed at the beach unless they're accompanied by an adult.
Right.
So, I think that, I suppose, in theory, one adult can load up their minivan with, 20 kids and bring them in, but I don't know how often something like that would really happen.
And that's, I guess so we could probably hopefully combat that with messaging. I mean, like we're not, our intent, if we're very clear with our intent of the policy, then hopefully people will support our intent and, giving space to Ayer residents that they didn't have last year, and that they would abide by it, by the goodness of their, heart, rather than being able to game the system.
We had some growing pains with this in 2016 when we instituted our initial policy with this. And there were a number of people who were ballistic about the idea that they could no longer bring their sister from Shirley or whatnot. And so, it took a little bit of time, but I think that we've been able to get through most of that already. And so I tend to believe that it's going to be pretty easy to get through after maybe the first week of people understanding whatever policy the commission decides to go with. As far as implementation goes, the easiest thing for our staff would be to have a pretty clear cut and dry resident only, to try to find a way to make everybody happy by throwing in, well, maybe every resident could have 2 guests or 1 guest or something. It would make it pretty difficult for staff to follow through when people start falling between the cracks on that. And somebody shows up with 2 guests. Well, I brought 2 people. You're gonna make one of them go home, and that type of thing. So I personally think the best course of action is to limit it to just residents only, with the exception of any type of waiver that the commission or Heidi or myself might want to give based on very specific circumstances, such as the one Jason laid out before as one. We've also given town hall resident or town hall employees in the past admission cards, and that's what we use, admission cards to for people to prove residency if they don't happen to have a license, or if they fall into one of those categories where we're giving a waiver to. So I'd like to still exercise all of those that we used to do, because it would still mirror how we would treat people as a resident under certain circumstances. So that's what I'd like to have the commission follow through with as a policy on this.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we would hate to ban our beachfront director from the beach.
No, you can do that. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, I agree that if you have you live in town and you have a nanny, that you should be able to go to the beach, and that they should be able to go. It's sort of like a case by case basis, maybe.
That's what we've always done in the past, and I think that is consistent with this policy that's being put in place for 2021.
So what's the process for doing that, for applying for that? They need to contact the park director?
What we had required in the past was some form of brief written correspondence, either letter or email, explaining the hardship that the person was seeking, and then we would either put it before the board, or if it was looking for immediate action, the board had delegated responsibility to Heidi or to myself to be able to act on that immediately if needed. And again, that is the current policy.
So I don't think we necessarily need to vote on that, or do we? Do we have to add that as in our motion?
I'd probably put it in there, because you don't want to have sort of informal exceptions to the rule being given, because then you open yourself up to, allegations that you're not being fair. that, you're allowing some non-residents in and not others. And so what I would suggest is after where it says in bold for Ayer residents only, I would add a clause that says, unless the director grants permission based on demonstration of hardship. How's that sound, Jeff?
That sounds good, except what was the one word? I can't think of what the wording, there was one word in there that I was thinking, but I'm just being fussy.
Oh, that's great. So unless the director grants permission based on demonstration of hardship?
I'd say the term waiver instead of permission. So
Okay.
grant a waiver.
So you're saying on this line right here,
Yes.
unless a waiver is granted.
Yep. In writing.
Hardship.
So, yep. Keep going. Unless a waiver is granted in writing by the director based on a demonstration of hardship.
I like it.
Sounds good to me.
So
Okay.
can I motion to accept this document as written?
You certainly can.
All right, can I motion to accept this document as written?
Jason, I second that motion.
All right. So we got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the matter? All right. So we'll do a roll call vote. Jason,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
and I'm also yes. Thank you. That being said, I think that's it for the agenda, right? At least we can talk about those camps in a second, but do we have anything else for Greg? Can we cut him loose and let him go enjoy his evening?
I really appreciate it, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Really,
Thank you.
it was great having you for this stuff.
Thank you.
Oh, great.
Thank
Thanks.
you for
Certainly
working.
anytime. And unfortunately, I won't be seeing you guys at the beach this summer, but hopefully next year.
We'll grant you a waiver if you have a hardship.
Yeah, right. You have a hardship.
Yeah. Well,
You could have wrote yourself into the policy.
if I find myself at a particularly difficult meeting in town, I may have a hardship.
Your tan is fading and you need
Thank
to do
you.
something quick.
Yeah, right. All right. Have a good night, everyone. It was good to meet you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Greg.
Thank you too. Bye, Addie. All right.
Oh,
so Jerry, real quick before
Yep.
before you jumped on, Heidi, you got anything else to talk about for the beach? Or-
Are there beach stickers at the town hall? Did
There are both parking stickers and resident cards available. Yes.
Okay. All right. That was all. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, Heidi.
Bye.
All right.
I'll be in touch tomorrow.
Okay. All right. I will talk.
Okay. So Jerry, Jason, and I
Yep.
kind of talked about it before you jumped on, but Jeff had sent the camp flyers out. I hadn't had a chance to take a look at it. And Jason hadn't either. I don't know if you had.
No, I haven't.
Are you in a
yet.
hotel room?
I am.
Oh man, you're on the road?
Yep, back on the road.
You were at soccer
Oh
today?
boy.
Nah, I didn't miss it today.
Man, I got a surprise for you. I was so excited for you to see him.
Oh, excellent. I'll be back at it on Saturday for
I
sure.
bet you can guess what they are. They
Can't.
involve pool noodles.
Aha! And the goals. Thanks, Jeff. You're the best.
I'll see if that works.
I can head dive into the goal now.
Nice.
All right.
Well, I'm guessing if you're traveling, you probably haven't had a chance to look at them
No.
either. So Jeff wants to get those out. You said, what, Monday, early next week,
I'd like to
the latest?
release registration and open registration up and send out and start advertising these camps by early next week. Yes, that's my goal.
Okay. So if this, by the end of this weekend, if you guys have any comments, and we talked earlier, we can't deliberate or come up with any decisions or make any substantial changes to policy or anything like that via email. Carrie, I don't know if you knew that or not, but
No.
we can certainly like make edits to, like, if you see like spelling errors or you want to just reword something that makes something more sense, because we're not changing the framework of the camp. We're just looking at the documents, looking for spelling errors, looking for different ways to word things, and making any like grammatical changes or anything like that. So I know that Jeff, you had a comment about soccer that you and Sarah and Jerry can talk about offline. That's fine. But other than that, if we can just take a look, and if you got something, you can reply to all, or you can just reply directly to Jeff. But if you do reply directly to Jeff, if they make edits to the document, can you just resend them so everybody has the most recent edit of the document?
Definitely. And Jerry, we'd also mentioned that, for commissioners who have, specific roles for subcommittees and things, as you're, part of the soccer, I'd like you to specifically look at both the little kicker camp that we're going to be doing, and then the soccer camps. And Jason, of course, if you can focus on both the baseball and the basketball ones, I really appreciate that, and softball for that matter.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Yep, that works.
Okay, cool. Okay, remember to vote, write Jason in next week. And you don't have to vote for me. You can find another write-in candidate for me too, if you want. So I won't be offended.
We need a quorum.
That would
Be someone else.
Is there anything else, Jeff?
No, that's great. I'm really glad that we were able to get this done. We're going to be we're going to be trying to put together a public notice that Robert wants us to give to him first before we release it. He wants to review it. So I intend to put that together probably by tomorrow and then go over with Heidi. So we'd like to make a public announcement on the beach opening and what we're going to be doing early next week as well. So I just wanted to make sure
Perfect.
that was coming. And I'll be forwarding that to the commission, obviously, before we put it out.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, so quick turnaround on that if you can. If you guys want to take a look at that, quick turnaround so we can get that
Got it.
done fast. I said the end of the week and I realized it's Thursday. So basically it is the end of the week.
Yep. No, we can get it done.
So cool. All right. Anything else? Jerry, Jason, you guys got anything?
Not that I can
Other than a motion to adjourn?
think.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Second.